All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the BBRC and our Q&A sessions with teachers. My name is Che. I am the program manager here at the center, and today I have Dave Smith and Erin Treat, who will be teaching a retreat on the land here in October. And we're going to get a little bit of insight about the retreat and also a little bit insight around the teachers and how they're coming to the Dharma. So if you two are ready, we'll go ahead and dive in. All right, so the first question will be, what inspired you to teach the focus of this retreat?
Well, the title of the retreat is called the Sure Hearts Release, which is actually a kind of a popular title of a retreat. We're not the first people to come up with this term. I think it's a part of the Buddhist tradition. It's the heart's release, and I like this idea. First of all, because I like the word heart, because the word mind and mindfulness is everywhere. The heart seems to be a little bit more pointing to something maybe a bit different, and
Mm,
I like the idea of being released from something, and it's kind of a natural way of awakening or a natural way of coming into our experience. So I like the theme because it's a little bit softer and it points to something maybe a little
mm,
bit more emotional rather than psychological. Um,
yeah.
and also, Aaron and I have been talking about teaching retreat for quite some time, and we both kind of agreed that this was a nice way to begin, and so we're excited to offer this framework to everybody.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to teaching together, Dave, and I can't wait to come to Big Bear for the first time. And like Dave is saying, I love the felt sense of the sure heart's release, which is a pointing toward liberation, toward the
Mm,
deepest freedom of the heart and the mind. And in my experience, awakening happens through the heart. It's not a mental process. Insight arises through the space of the heart. And the word sure in the title also captures something for me. It captures a
mm,
spirit of confidence. And in the way
mm,
that we are holding the
mm,
retreat, teaching the practices, we're really teaching a kind of confidence, the confidence that comes in being with our experience from the continuity of present moment experience. So there's a kind of confidence both in the path of waking up and a measure of confidence in ourselves because we can show up for ourselves and all that life asks of us. So I'm passionate about the Sure Hearts release.
mm.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing that. I think that's a really, I think, key root and key intention to me because I think there can be some assumptions around getting into meditative spaces, getting into mindfulness, dealing with the mind where folks can maybe conveniently release the emotions. And, there's a big centering in the heart for you to really ground and root in the fullness of yourself. So yeah, I really appreciate that intention of sitting and being sure in the heart. So who would you say that this retreat is for?
I would say it's for everybody. I think that
Mhm,
you know, my style is to be kind of beginner friendly. I think Aaron's is too. I actually sat at a retreat with Aaron a few weeks ago, and really, anybody can come on this retreat. Going on retreat can kind of be intimidating, I think, for a lot of people, especially if you've never
mm,
been. So I just want to let folks know that we're coming at it from a very baseline level, creating a retreat container that's kind, that's friendly, that's open, that allows people to show up however they are, whoever they are, in a way that they can
mm,
practice together. And the instructions will be basic, and we really look forward to offering something that really anybody can just kind of come in and learn and practice. So I really don't think it's geared towards anybody or any level of practice at all.
Yeah, I'm with you, Dave. If you're suffering, come on the retreat. If you're happy,
mm,
come on the retreat. If you're healthy, come on the retreat. If you're sick, come on the retreat. If you're dealing with transitions in your life or loss or your response to what's happening in our world, come on the retreat. The practice is good medicine, no matter what. And I know for myself, when I'm looking at my own retreat practice, it can be so easy for the busyness of daily life to cover over the incredible preciousness of the opportunity to sit retreat. So for me, there's a sense of do not delay. We never know how long we have. All
mm.
are welcome. And we really mean that very, very sincerely. Uh, we wake up right where we are. So just bring yourselves as you are.
Mm. Yeah, thank you for that. It's always nice to feel open arms extended for all who are ready and available. How would you both describe your teaching style?
I'll say a few words. My teaching style, I would say, holds the practical and the profound. I'm interested
Mm,
in practicing in a way that makes a difference where the rubber meets the road in our daily lives, that makes a difference in the mess of our full-on lives. It makes a difference how we show up with our families and at
mm,
work, and especially in the way we talk to ourselves. I'm also interested in pointing towards something that is deeper than the words, pointing toward a kind of resonance or harmonizing with the mystery, with the sacred. So, my teaching style is pretty much down to earth and real with a lot of confidence in this path. To me, nothing is outside of Dharma practice. So we're teaching the art and technology of meditation practice in a way that's inclusive of all of our lives. And part of what's fun about teaching with Dave is, it doesn't get more real than Dave Smith. And so we also are both like pretty relational people. So we'll be real together. We'll be real with the participants of the retreat. And it's emergent. We can't possibly, it's not prefabricated. We can't possibly plan it all in advance. We'll be teaching in a way that's particular to the identities and the experiences sitting in the room. That's really the space that the Dharma comes from, I would say, for myself and for us, if that's not too much of a
Yeah,
of a
that's
stretch,
great.
Dave.
Yeah, I like the question. I've never really thought about this question, so it's kind of hard to answer. I would say I I mean, I'm somebody who's in recovery, so I'm used to being in rooms and spaces where self-disclosure, talking about myself, talking about my struggles and my joys is just kind of very, very natural. In fact, I wouldn't even know how to not do that. So like Erin said, I think we both come at it from more of a relational experience where we can offer teachings in a way that's maybe not so much hierarchy, that's more like, hey, we're doing this too. We've been doing it maybe a little bit longer. But I feel more like a student than I do a teacher. And if you're a student long enough, you kind of end up teaching. And that's kind of with my trajectory. So I think that the style is to be down to earth, relational, and really letting folks know that we're kind of in it with them. And we're just kind of holding the container and the curriculum or the teachings, for lack of a better word, in a way that is that feels more inclusive. And so that's always my intention, is to kind of bring that spirit of really friendliness
Mm,
to the room.
mm,
yeah, I definitely appreciate a key point that both of you highlighted, and that, or a couple of things, and the relational aspects, and especially when you're having someone who's guiding you into deeper practices, you do want to feel connected to them. You do want to feel like they're there with you and that they're really tangible. So I really appreciate that. And also the honesty piece that you mentioned in terms of being real. Yeah, people want to hear about the wide spectrum of, being in more shadowy spaces, also being in light spaces, and really how to navigate each of those moments in life, because they're going to happen in the span of the day, in a day, in weeks, in a year. So thank you both for that. Um, and I would say from that question, who or what inspired you to teach the Dharma?
I'll start. It's interesting. I kind of came in the back door. I wasn't really so much inspired to teach. I um, I just started teaching. I was at a time in my life where I was just really suffering a lot, and I was working. I had moved to the south, and I was working in substance abuse treatment. I was working with teenagers, male and female teenagers, in a kind of addiction treatment facility, and I kind of just started teaching mindfulness practices out of kind of sheer desperation because I didn't really have any other training, and they just took to it. And so I just found myself teaching in rooms with suffering people, and then I started teaching in jails and prisons. And then at some point I was like, well, I should probably get some training Um, and so, and then that kind of just rolled. So I started more in the clinical world, and then I started teaching emotional intelligence and secular mindfulness. And my background is primary the Dharma, so the shift over was quite easy. Um, so, I was really inspired by the struggle of the people in front of me,
Hmm.
and realizing that, hey, I actually have something to offer here, and getting back to the practice, and the Dharma really is the primary inspiration. It just blows my mind how it doesn't matter what room you're in or who you're with, it just works, you know. That's part of the sure that Erin pointed to. It's like it just works.
Mhm.
When people show up in an authentic way and are willing to be with themselves in a different capacity, things just happen. And that actually continues to inspire me.
Hmm. It's a beautiful, Dave. Thank you. Um, it's interesting, the reflection, like who or what inspired me to teach the Dharma. I just kept getting asked to, honestly. I started teaching here in Durango, Colorado, in southwestern Colorado, where I live. I started teaching when I was in my late 20s. And what I found is that teaching is good for my practice. When I'm teaching the Dhamma, I have to be at the forward edge of my practice. Like, you can't teach from memory. Teaching is no bullshit. Teaching really assures me that my practice is going to be strong and intact. And it's such a privilege. So I learn so much in the process of teaching, in what emerges with co-teachers, what emerges with the people on the retreats or in the programs. Um, so above all else, teaching is good for my practice. And what I've really come to know is that my life is happiest when I'm in the Dhamma. So it's a simple practice of happiness for me. I'm happiest practicing the Dhamma, and an outgrowth of my love of the Dhamma is the very sacred task of sharing the Dhamma. And I feel like my life has been deeply, deeply impacted by my own teachers, by beings who have really given their hearts over to this path. And so there's just a natural wish that I may return in some small measure all that has been gifted to me when it comes to the Dhamma. So I love teaching, but it's like Dave's saying, I love teaching because I love practicing.
Yeah.
Wow, those are both really, really rich answers. And yeah, I think the integrity piece of it, the integrity of wanting to be grounded and anchored and centered in your own practice, and also the embodiment of that, right? Like, you want, again, someone who's leading or extending their hand to others, like, okay, let me, show me how you know this, so let me see how you walk it also too. And so yeah, that embodiment piece is always a big, big thing for me, in terms of, yeah, anyone who's leading folks through the mind, through the emotions, those can be really challenging spaces. So
Mm.
yeah, thank you both. All right, and I will close with one more question that is also hopefully an unctuous bite of details. But what key aspects of your childhood or early adulthood inform who you are, why you teach, or what brought you to the Dharma, or what you even bring to the Dharma?
I'll say a bit. It's really a question. It's a great question. In my culture, growing up in Fargo, North Dakota, the culture of having a strong Midwestern, self-reliant work ethic, I learned I learned to be really, really hard on myself from a very early age. Um, and part of what led me to the Dhamma was just this internal, deep, deep struggle with a sense of judgment, a sense of the inner critic, and the suffering of that. There was also just a sense of seeking. I remember as a younger person just seeking, knowing there was something more than what I was learning in school, and noticing this sense that I couldn't really sit still with myself. And there was a feeling that if I couldn't sit still with myself, like something wasn't quite right. So the heart of it is that I was in some angst, suffering, and looking for a way to be with my experience that was more than thinking about it or talking about it. And so part of what brought me to the Dharma was just this deep, deep sense of seeking and wanting something that was actually like practical. In my early adulthood experience, I felt a bit lost in the world. I felt a bit aimless and a bit lost. And the place I felt most whole was in the natural world, was the red rocks of Utah, was at the base of the trees, was amidst fields of aspens. And what I noticed is when I was in nature, I just like, I wasn't thinking, but I was held in a certain way. And so there's a way that the practice began to give me a means of tapping into something that was less dependent upon kind of what was out here and where I was. So it was really suffering and some kind of love of truth that brought me to the Dhamma.
That's great to hear. Yeah, I mean, it was really, suffering and trauma, and feeling bewildered and lost and hopeless. Um, and unlike, I didn't even think there was anything out there that would even help. I mean, I was totally hopeless as a teenager. Um, and so, I mean, coming into contact with something like she says, practical, something that was just really like brass tacks. And really, I think the primary kind of the Buddha's assessment, if you will, is like, it's all about the mind, really. It's the mind and the heart. It's what's going on in here. Like I was so focused on what was going on out there, and then realizing that there was an in here, and I could do something about it. I mean, that was just huge, that I actually had a lot of agency, and there were things that I could do that could make me maybe live in this world with some degree of ease. And I think the thing about the Dharma, uh, of course, when you talk about the Dharma, suffering comes up, but I think that's a misunderstood kind of concept about what we get out of it. Is the thing about it that did it for me was it would normalized it. It was like suffering. It was kind of like, yeah, like yes, yes, and there's it wasn't this. It was the first time that there was something I encountered, whether it was philosophical or religious or spiritual or whatever, psychological, that said, okay, there's a framework here that's actually pointing to the reality of reality. It's not denying it. It's not nihilistic about it. It's just kind of straight up about it. And that there's something that you can do, there's practices that you can do, that you can cultivate to live in the world, not just with ease and just kind of tolerating that, but actually to be truly happy in spite of that, that there's a freedom within all of this. And that was really just, I read two books. There was like, I didn't do anything in school. I was a terrible student. And then my final senior year, I had one teacher, an English teacher, who had us read two books. One of them was Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, and the other one was The Stranger by Albert Camus.
Hmm.
And those two books just opened me up to this like way of thinking about life that was just interesting and hopeful and optimistic, but still dark. And those two books still haunt the back of my mind. And so, I could go on and on. I'm not gonna, but that's a great question, because it's like, I mean, everything that happened before is really is informing everything that I do now. And so, on some level, I'm actually grateful for all the suffering that I've gone through, because I wouldn't have the life that I have had that not happened.
Wow, thank you both so much. Yeah, there's a lot around just the agency and the being able to turn contrast and shadows into something that is beneficial for you, something that inspires growth and asks you to grow and become more. So yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, so I think to just, yeah, in hindsight, being able to have deep understanding about how suffering, how the heaviness of life can really catapult you into the fullness of who you are and really getting into the depth of who you are and asking you to be more, you know. So thank you both for sharing so much, and being willing to dive into that very open and vulnerable question.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, thank you again. I really enjoyed listening to what both of you had to offer. And it's also of great benefit to me, you know, as someone who's moving in unison with teaching teams here. It's always nice to get to hear and know more about you and what inspires you and what brings you into this lineage, into this practice. So thank you for sharing that. And before we wrap, is there anything that either of you would like to share or offer or ask yourselves?
I'll just say, thank you so much for inviting us and being with us in
Mhm,
this time. Dave and I were just saying in the break kind of how there's just a sense of our palpable, just really excited about this retreat. And I just also wanted to extend the invitation to anyone who's listening. If you have any questions about the retreat,
mhm.
feel free to reach out to Big Bear or to myself or Dave. You know, we're here to respond to questions and orient you in any way that we can. And hopefully we'll see you at Big Bear.
Yeah. Yeah, and also just anybody who's watching or listening who's maybe been wanting to sit a retreat or looking at retreats, who's maybe intimidated or feels scared or overwhelmed by the potential of doing it, we definitely invite you to come sit with us. We definitely know that territory, and whether you're a beginner or whether you've done this a million times, the retreat structure and the teachings are really appropriate to people at any level. So all come, and like you said, if you have questions, just reach out, and we hope to see you up on the hill.
We sure do.
Yeah, thank you both again. And you can find, in addition to the email invitations, you can always send an email inquiry to info@bigbearretreatcenter.org. You can find the retreat registration for Dave and Erin's retreat at bigbearretreatcenter.org, and you will find that under our retreat calendar. So please don't hesitate to reach out or to have a look. And thank you for spending some time with us in this Q&A session, and we look forward to having you here on the land. Thank you both. Take care.
Thank you, Che.